Hello garden friend, it is June and it is time for the June garden tour. So I got a treat for you today, or actually I got a treat for me. My grandson is going to be my camera guy today. Alright camera guy, let's go down to the garden and we'll get started with the tour. Here we are at the lower end of the garden where we normally start. We actually, camera guy and I planted some carrots down here. You want to get close there, carrot guy, and look at those carrots? I mean carrot guy, camera guy. Are you carrot guy or camera guy? So look at those carrots coming up. We actually put this piece of metal mesh over them to keep the bunnies from eating them. But it turns out the bunnies aren't what messed up this. I had a whole row here of carrots, and looks like some birds or squirrels or chipmunks or something came in here and scratched everything up. So the only place that they're really sown very well is right here where we started and where we put this mesh over. So I'm going to have to put some fencing over the whole row and reseed. There are some carrots. Come here, camera guy. There's a couple carrots that did manage to survive all the movement. There's one right there. There's one right there. There's one right there. So those survived the movement of the soil, but most of them got killed. Alright, so here's a row of tomatoes here where I have this trellis set up. See, those, what are these? Mountain Rouge tomatoes. From here over are Mountain Rouge. I'll put a card up here so that you can click and go to that how to plant tomatoes video that I did the other day. Alright, let's look at the figs here at the end. Okay, here's the figs. Got some Breba figs on here. This is a yellow long neck, I think, or maybe a, I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to look and see exactly which fig this is. Here's some pepper plants that I planted when I did the tomato video also. Some sweet peppers here. Come on, camera guys, let's show them the onions here. These are my winter sowed onions that I transplanted most of them out of this container. But I still have some onions to plant into the garden. Go ahead and get a good close-up of those onions. Look at those onions. They need to be transplanted. Okay, let's go look at these okra down here. Here's okra. I planted a row here, and I put some sticks up because we had a dog visiting the other weekend, and I didn't want the dog to destroy all the okra. So I'm gonna have to thin these down. Probably have an okra like every 6 inches or so would be fine. So go ahead and thin out some of these so it'll give more room to the other ones to grow. See, I can't do this on a regular tour because I'm holding my camera. So it's a lot easier with my camera guy. Alright, so we got them thinned down to about 6 inches or so. Now back up a little bit and we'll show them our black coat beans. These are black coat beans. They're doing super well. I think I got them planted early enough that they used the cooler season to get started growing, and now they're really growing like crazy. Aren't those pretty blooms? Go ahead and zoom up on these pretty blooms. I mean, just get closer to them. You don't have to zoom. Aren't those pretty blooms? Okay, camera guy, let's go over here and show them where we did plant some onions. Oh, here's a zinnia too. Let's grab this zinnia. There's my first zinnia bloom of the year. Alright. Okay, and here's where we planted some of those onions from our winter sowing jug. See, here's some onions here. In the midst of our blueberry plants. See this blueberry plant? There's some blueberry plants that I just put in the ground a few weeks ago. We got a whole row of onions there. So let's step over the onion. Okay, here's some sugar peas that I got some seeds from Cheryl Mann at the, she's the queen of winter sowing. She has a Facebook group. Thanks for those seeds, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Let's get some sugar peas off of here. so we can have a little breakfast on the way here. Because camera guy likes sugar peas. Here you go, camera guy. You can have one. I think we ate them all pretty much yesterday, didn't we? They're really nice when they're nice and small like this. They're nice and tasty. But I don't see a whole lot on here. I think we ate most of them yesterday. But there's a lot of blooms coming. See the blooms up here? Actually a pretty plant. Alright. Here's one of the Egyptian spinaches we planted. Look at that Egyptian spinach. That's Egyptian spinach. And this plant here is a weed. You can see why when I planted these directly in the ground and didn't winter sow them, I had a hard time determining which was the Egyptian spinach and which was the weed. In fact, I've eaten quite a bit of this weed in other years that I didn't realize it wasn't the Egyptian spinach. So this is the Egyptian spinach. Let's come up to the square foot garden and show them where I planted one of the Egyptian spinaches in the square foot garden. Okay, here's where I just planted my Egyptian spinach. And I did make a video of that, planting the Egyptian spinach in the square foot garden. If I can put a card up at the top, I can put a card up at the top for that as well. But this thing has really taken off just since I planted it, just a couple days ago. So take a shot in there, inside there of that cold frame that I have some figs growing. Those are J.H. Adriatics that I just shoved some of the prunings from last fall in there. So they're growing really well. Here's some dahlias. They're pretty dahlia flowers. Take a close-up of that dill weed there. That dill weed right there. Yeah, that's some dill weed. That was actually a volunteer. I had dill there last year. Might have even been the year before. But it came up as a volunteer. Okay, take a picture of those. Get those. This is my grandson's garden, actually. He has some hot peppers in here. There's jalapenos. And were they all jalapenos? We think that one's a jalapeno. Take a look at this one over here. This one we actually overwintered, and it's just starting to sprout out from being overwintered. So hopefully it has a bunch of roots from being last year's pepper. So those things have really started to take off since we planted them, haven't they, camera guy? All right, come on around here. This is one of my tomatoes. You might need to back up over here so you can see it better. This is one of my tomatoes. Actually, I have two tomato plants planted in there, and they are cherry tomatoes. I think they might be cherry tomatoes that I got from Ray at Praxis's seeds. And this is a rebar cage that I put them in, and I just, if they start coming out like that, I just shove them back in there to try and keep them under control. I haven't pruned these guys or anything. Usually don't prune cherry tomatoes too much. Strawberries have actually done really well. This almost looks like a stevia leaf. Definitely not a stevia leaf. That was not very tasty. Here's some marigolds in a row right here. See this row? Marigolds that I winter sowed, and they used to have a really interesting bloom on them, ones that you don't see from buying from the nursery. But here's one that has one that's about ready to bloom. Oh, this one's about ready to bloom even. See that little bloom right there? That'll be blooming probably in a week or so. Did I say the strawberries are all done already for this year? Okay, here's milkweed. Remember this milkweed? We transplanted this from another spot, and like an hour or two after we transplanted it, we saw a monarch butterfly come and lay eggs right on the plant. I will go ahead and put a picture up of the eggs that monarch laid. And we haven't seen a monarch butterfly since then. But it was really cool to see that butterfly come and lay eggs as soon as we had the plants in the ground, basically. Okay, camera guy, come on around here. Oh, you can show some pictures of the butterfly garden as you go around. This is a lot of wildflowers there. We did plant some zinnias in here as well. Here's an area where we planted some grass seed because my wife wanted to reclaim some of the lawn right here. So this we used to have is our rabbit garden. Things that we planted for the rabbits to grow. Things that we planted for the rabbits to eat. So I actually wanted you to come over here and show people the kiwi plant. See this kiwi plant growing right here? I think this is the second year I've had this kiwi growing. And it has some kale over here. The kale is going to seed. Look, that's going to have tons of kale seeds in there. So we'll be able to plant some kale off of this. This is a premier kale, is the name of it. Okay, there's the garden dog. What are you doing, garden dog? She's stepping on our arugula. So we moved the rabbit garden over here. So, I don't know if camera guy likes arugula. You like arugula, carrot guy? I keep calling you carrot guy. It's camera guy. Camera guy does not like arugula. I thought you did. Okay, here's one thing that camera guy does like. He really likes our cucumbers. And you can see the cucumbers here. Look, that one didn't make it. Like I said, that one turned yellow. And I bet that will fall off if I just push it a little bit. Well, I guess we can give it more of a chance still. But there's a little green baby cucumber coming with the blossom here. So it's got a lot of blossoms. Got a fair amount of plants here. So we're going to have some cucumbers. This looks more like a squash. And I don't recall planting any squash. But you can see somewhere I saw a squash starting to form. Where did I see a squash starting to form? Oh, up here. Look at that. That actually looks like a tromboncino squash. Oh my goodness. That's a huge squash plant. So I guess we'll let it grow. Maybe get some tromboncino. And it's actually starting. Take a picture of this vine going up into the tree. Look at how this vine is going up into the tree. It's going right up into the pecan tree. So I guess we'll go ahead and let it grow as long as it doesn't shade our cucumbers too much. Hey, here's some bloody dock. The bloody dock is doing really, really well this year. I've made some green eggs for the grandkids with this a couple times already. And it's starting to slow down a little bit now because of the heat. I put some onions in there from the winter sowed plants as well. And they are starting to grow, starting to take off. The big plants over there on the right, do you know what those are, Colin? What are they? You can talk.
They all, I know how to describe them.
Horseradish, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So over here, you can see my elderberries that I transplanted too late in the spring from the other side of the yard because we decided we didn't want them where they were. So we put them in the garden here. So I don't know if these are going to recover enough to give me some elderberries this year or not. We'll have to see. Okay, here is a garlic that was sort of a volunteer as well. Look how the leaves have died already. Let's go ahead and pull this thing up and see if it has a good bulb on it. Oh yeah, look at that. That's like one of my best garlic bulbs. Look, it has this little, almost like cloves. I've never seen that before, where the cloves are coming out from the bottom of the roots. But I guess I could plant those, or I could just use them for eating. But that's a beautiful bulb of the garlic. So we'll have to get that later and use it. Okay, over here we have some red Russian kale. There's some red Russian kale. And behind that I have a row of cilantro. Camera guy does like cilantro, I think. You like cilantro? Oh yeah, rabbit camera guy likes cilantro. Here's one thing we have good this year. The camera guy will probably like these too. Some blackberries. Oh yeah. It's nice to be able to get some breakfast while we're in the garden. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Is that a good one?
The first one was a sour.
Yeah, if they're not totally ripe, they can be a little sour. Mmm. Pretty good. Okay, there's some onions. You want to show them that row of onions there? Those are onions that I planted from sets. There's a row of garlic, actually 2 rows of garlic there. And then some onions that I planted from my winter sown onions that are in the middle there too, but they're sort of small. Can't hardly see them yet. That's a persimmon tree, and it's got a lot of persimmons starting to come out on it. Oh, look at this persimmon. There's some persimmons. These are an Asian or Japanese, I forget. Fuyo persimmon. I think it's Japanese. But you know what we forgot to show them? We forgot to show them the apples. Let's go back and show them the apple trees and the apples on the apple trees. Okay, here's a golden delicious apple tree. So it has a few apples on it this year. This is the first year that it's had apples. There's a nice little apple starting to grow. Here's some apples. Here's some apples. Apple there, apple here, apple everywhere. And then look up there. There's some apples way up there as well.
I saw a honeybee.
You saw a honeybee? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and then up at the top of that tree, this is an apple tree that I planted from seed. And up at the top there, I see, how many do you see? 1, 2, 3, I see 4 right in that one cluster. And that's the only cluster I see on that tree. I will put a link up here to I'll put a link up here to my how to plant tomatoes, or how to transplant tomatoes. I'll put a link up here to that video. Over here, I'll put a link to a video that Google says you will like. Thank you, camera guy, for filming today. And now we gotta go edit this video so we can get it published.